video, we will be painting and installing the two cabinet doors that we made in the last episode. But first, I do need to do a little bit of adjusting. So some of these, the ends stick out a little bit like this, here or there. And what I'm gonna try to do, which I've never done before, is use the router to make them straight. So I've got this set up, it's clamped, straight piece of wood here, from here to here. This is pretty flat over here. So I want this to be as straight as this, from side to side. Probably gonna have to do this to at least a couple of the ends on these cabinets, but I don't know if it's gonna work because I've never actually done this before. I've only ever used the router in the table. So this will be a fun experience. This is a flush cut blade. It's got this little metal circle at the end here. And that will prevent it from going further than that straight board I've got underneath the cabinet door. So, theoretically. Well, it worked, but it's not long enough to do the whole thing, so I gotta raise it up and do the top part. Now, to be fair, I could go over the whole side, this top corner with the round over bit to make it look like this. I'm not gonna do that. It's gonna be flat, it's gonna be whatever it ends up being, and I'm just gonna be happy with that. If I want to change it later, I can. That's the power of DIY, but I don't think I'm gonna notice it once it's all painted and in place and everything. So hopefully nobody else does either. I always wondered how people with routers would be able to just straight like that without any kind of fence clamped down and get a perfect line. Now I know. Special bits. Okay, so I'm just going to do this to the other ones and then we'll hit it with some primer. Went out and got some new primer that isn't a year old, and I do use, like I said in part 1, oil-based, because I mean I probably use it on any raw wood cabinets. The only actual wood that my cabinets are made out of is poplar, and it's just the face frames. But even if they were like all plywood, I would still use oil-based primer for them because it seems to reduce the need to sand. If you use water-based on any kind of raw wood or wood product, it makes the fibers raise, and then you gotta sand them down so everything's smooth. I don't like sanding. I like it a little bit more since I have a random orbital sander now, but I still don't enjoy it. Oil. So my rails and stiles are made out of MDF, and it's pre-primed. I don't know if it's primed with a water or oil-based paint. Something you have to be aware of is that, as far as I know, you can't put oil over water. You can put water over oil, which is what I'm gonna do, but I don't remember if I covered the entire doors with the oil primer or just the panels. But I'm gonna do that now, regardless, and see how it works, because if it ends up bad, I can just redo it. Sometimes you gotta find out. So, some dust on here, so I'm gonna wipe that down, and then we'll paint. straight up, I'm just gonna dunk this into the gallon of paint because it's 2 cabinets. I don't feel like it really warrants using my paint tray that I just found. It's fine, guys. I've done this before. Pretty decent. Not perfect, but we're not aiming for perfection here. We're aiming for finished. So I'm not going to worry about painting the back sides of these because I have an idea that I want to do, that I want to try to help them stay where they're supposed to be. So I want to try that idea before, you know, wasting a bunch of paint on the back. Once that's dry, we'll come back down, do a top coat with white paint, so it's not going to look any different, really. It'll just be more even. And then what we're going to try to do, hopefully, is to build a jig to help me install these, because they are tall. I'm hoping I can figure something out that will clamp to the cabinets themselves and help me hold these where I need them to be while I screw in the hinges. So I checked the can, and it says can be recoated in 1 hour. I left it for 2 hours, so it feels pretty dry now. I'm pretty confident in it, and I think it's good to be painted. What I've been using for the upper cabinets is just this. It's paint and primer. I don't think that matters. I don't know why I chose this. It must have been on sale or something, but it works pretty well. So it's just white, ultra pure white. Have been thinking about repainting the uppers since I did the base cabinets in that darker kind of brown color, so that might happen. I would probably do a lighter version of that brown, but I haven't decided yet. I don't know. I'm gonna have to see what these look like up and get the whole picture of it before I really make that decision. So we'll see. Once these get put up, then I'll know, I hope. And if not, we'll figure something out. But let's get these painted, same process as the primer. Maybe that's why I chose this? Oh, of course. It's an enamel. It's not just like a plain acrylic like you'd use on your walls. From what I understand, it dries harder. So if you've ever had a bad paint job where you could stick your fingernail into it and it like sunk in, bad. Don't want that on furniture. Don't want that on cabinets because it gets sticky. And I think I chose this because it doesn't do that. But I can't figure out how long it has to dry. Well, I'm gonna have to Google that. Probably a couple hours, but this does look like it will need a second coat. I can see where it's thin in certain spots, so I'm gonna do that, let it dry, but we're actually gonna take this upstairs and recoat the glass door cabinets because that's been bugging me. I just didn't want to get out a whole roller for, you know, basically a frame, but we're gonna do that now. Alright, so I built a jig and clamped it to the cabinet. This is my jig. It's really just a couple pieces of wood screwed together, clamped on here with a 1/8 inch shim, I guess. Put it under here. So the hope is that the door will balance on this overhang, which should be 1/8 of an inch above the frame, and will give me time and help to put it all together. Okay. She's a little short. Needs to be up a little bit more because having some issues. Cool, great, fun, love. The jig didn't work. Cool. Well, this is why I only put 2 screws on this one, because I can take these out and flip it. And then mark my mistakes. So, I'm gonna say this was up, but also wrong. And now I'm going to take these out, measure what the distance was, and then I'll also have a screw to screw distance, so I'll know that that's exactly right. But I just need to make sure that when this gets flipped, I add that much. So I have to confess, I didn't actually measure the gap before I put it up there. I just assumed. Don't do that, because the gap will never be what you think it is unless you're like a professional who's done this for years and years. I'm not. So turns out it was not 1/8 of an inch gap. It was more like whatever this is. I used an extra piece of this and it was perfect. So now we just gotta do the other door, and same thing, different size. So the last thing I have to do with these doors is related to how they sit in these cabinets, because they don't like to sit flat. They kind of pop out a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. So I've tried stuffing little bits of cardboard in the hinge here, but if it's still happening, which it does, that's not the problem. So what I think I'm gonna do is get some really skinny, like 1/8 inch boards, slice them down to fit on the backs here, and then this will be like a step down from the frame parts that will also make the handles fit. But I'm hoping that that will also help them to sit flush, because I really don't want to have to get those like old style clamp closer thingies. You know what I'm talking about. If all else fails, I'll get some kind of something to hold them closed. But that's gonna be a different video, so see you then.